asking me about it.
Am I not supposed to?
Here, I'll just hit this person. TR 2022-1948. Today's the day set for the jury trial for State of Arizona versus Becky Heather Bell. What do we have for the state?
Jason Nunez for the state, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. Defense.
David Loder representing Ms. Bell.
And Ms. Bell, will you say your name for me?
Becky Bell.
Thank you. So a couple things, we'll get to some scheduling matters in just a second. As far as, I went through the proposed jury instructions as well as the proposed voir dire questions. I did give you guys a copy of those. Do we have anything to take up regarding those two matters?
No, there's nothing, sir.
No, you're.
And just to be clear, there was the one voir dire question that I just modified it just a touch, but for my own benefit, and that was the, let me find it, actually I did change a few things. I did take the references to alcohol out of the instructions that I did have proposed. Mr. Nunez, you were very thorough about the marijuana part, which did tip me off that this was a marijuana case. So even on like number 28, I did take off, what normally would be, it's not against the law of the state for a person to drink or ingest a legal drug. I did remove that reference to drinking. Is that appropriate, Mr. Loder?
Yes.
Also, too, the one question I didn't change, it drew my attention to. You may have heard about instruments that measure the alcohol concentration in a person's breath or blood. And it says in this case a blood test was done. Does anyone object to testing blood or scientific principles on testing blood to detect active drug use? I just wanted to clarify that that was the appropriate way to ask that question.
That sounds good.
Okay. Other than that, it was pretty cut and dry regarding the voir dire questions. And the preliminaries are acceptable?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And I did give the proposed finals. I know those are going to change, but I like to give those to you guys prior to, just so you have that reference if we have to take up something later regarding that. I do need to address trial time. Are we expected to have a 1 day or 2 day or more?
It's certainly not more than 2 days. We may be able to get it done in 1 day.
There's an accommodation. I wasn't going to continue the trial again on my own. So where we're at is I do have budget hearings tomorrow morning with the Board of Supervisors. So if we do need to come back tomorrow, we'll be at noon. Unless there's another proposal that somebody wants to put out there regarding that.
The goal is to finish today. And even if it's, because I think closing is going to kind of come towards, well, it always comes at the end, but if we need to extend for just even a short period of 5:30, the state would want to do that in order to make sure we don't come back tomorrow.
Okay. And I think that'd be more in the hands of the jurors.
Right.
It's going to be their choice, but if we do need to come back tomorrow, it wouldn't be until noon.
Okay.
My schedule has me there at 10, and I can let them know, hey, I need to go first.
Okay.
So, are you okay with that, Mr. Loder?
Okay. Mr. Loder.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
we were just you'd be okay if we do need to come back tomorrow to do it at noon?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
That's what, in our experience, it would be for deliberation, if nothing else, tomorrow, but we'll see how it goes. Do we have any stipulations to be made?
Yes, Your Honor. The state defense is stipulated to the scientific evidence, the results, as well as the blood draw, correct?
We're allowed. Yes.
And Mr. Loder, you stipulated to the blood draw as well?
Yes.
And what was it, and also to the SCR?
Yes.
Yes.
Do we have numbers on those exhibits yet?
State exhibit number 6.
Is the blood draw?
That's the SCR.
Okay, thank you. just that the draw was done appropriately.
Correct.
I think there was one other matter. Oh, video. Are we watching video today?
That is the plan.
Yes.
Okay, have we got our timestamps and we're good with the video, or do we need to discuss the video?
So you're gonna have our AV unit cut down the times to, that way it's, only times that I'm using is on one disk.
I have everything on a flash drive. The only question is, we had the problem last time, the time didn't show up on the monitor, and we don't know. We can't fast forward or move to the space that we want to see. In other words, if I want to, just for an example, if I wanted to look at a spot, say 10 minutes and 5 seconds into the first video, I don't want to have to play the whole 10 minutes and 5 seconds, but the display the last time we did it didn't show the timing on there. And it could not go to specific places.
And that's because of your thumb drive, or that's just because the computer's capabilities?
That's because it didn't display up there.
Is that because we couldn't see it, or it
It
didn't?
didn't display.
Do we want
Play it
to?
on your machine up onto the video.
Do we want to try it real quick?
I don't know if I was trying to.
Just to see, just for the time.
Sure.
I'm just trying to avoid the delay of us working it out later.
Now, the last time we did it, it was on a disc.
Yeah.
And maybe
This
that.
might make a difference.
And I'm looking for which file.
Just pick any one. One of the smaller ones.
Oh, I just clicked anywhere.
Okay.
So I have a time here on the
All right.
bottom.
Go ahead and click and drag. All right, we're good then.
Okay.
We're good then. We can get the times, so we shouldn't have any problem. Thank you.
And are we going to be laying foundation for the video, or are we just stipulate that the foundation's made and we can play the video?
I would stipulate the video is
That's fine here.
Okay.
is clearly body cam video.
Do we have a number on it yet?
Mine is number 7.
Number 7. Body cam video. Body cam. And whose video was it? Whose body cam?
St. Joy.
There's
There's a lot.
9 videos.
There are no videos. It's between Radford and St. Joy.
I'm just trying to think if we can make a record now of what we're going to be playing, that we agree on it.
I'm primarily using St. Joy's, not Radford's.
Okay.
Your name's kind of fun to say.
Now that you figured out how to say
I'm
it.
using redacted St. Gelais, Radford's FST video, Radford's test substation video, and St. Gelais paperwork 2 video.
St. Gelais Paperwork 2 video.
Yes.
And that's what they're titled on the thumb drive?
That's what they're trying.
Okay. So Radford SFT, Radford Substation, St. Gelais Paperwork.
And the main redacted St. Gelais.
St. Gelais.
That should be the largest one.
That's 2 hours and
long.
42 minutes.
Do we have anything in those videos that either one of you don't want shown that we have to talk about? Otherwise, we could just admit the entire video and you can pick your parts.
It would be improper for us to not admit the whole video if we're going to show one portion of it.
No, I would agree. I would agree with that. I just hope you guys know. I hope you guys know where we're going on the video, rather than us watching the video and figuring out where we're going on the
Oh,
video.
no, I definitely know where I'm going.
I have the full video on a separate disc. I just had them cut it down to use the parts that I wanted. That way, when we publish to the jury, if there was anything that Mr. Logan didn't want the jury to see, that way it was.
It was more about if there's something on there that you don't believe the jury should see.
It's all admissible.
Yeah. Okay.
It'd be a foolish objection.
I've seen some videos where there's things that aren't. There may be some motions of limiting on videos, so I've seen it a few times. With All right, so last one. Is as far as keeping the evidence too. Are we going to keep your thumb drive? Or are we going to keep his
I'll
CD?
submit it, so I'll need to,
And you're okay with keeping his thumb drive?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay.
yeah, it's the same,
All
it's
the
just
same.
everything, I didn't cut anything.
And should we put it in as the entire thumb drive as one bit of evidence, or should?
Yes.
Okay. Do we have a number on it?
Number one.
Or number,
Defense number one.
defense number one? Okay.
Never sticker.
You guys can argue over who owns the video. So we have a stipulation of the blood draw to the SCR and to defense one, which is the entirety of the body cam that was taken in this case.
Correct, correct.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think we just saved an hour of the juror's time today. Let me turn that off. Let me make sure that, actually, let me make sure the audio works too.
You gotta go to at least 30 seconds.
It'll still make the noise on when I just do my volume. That's my volume test. There we go. All right, anything else we need to go over?
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right, well, let's take, we'll get the jurors in here in 7 minutes and we will, we'll pick back up then. Thank you, guys. All right, we can go on. You ready to start, Dave? Mr. Loader, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, you ready, Mr. News?
Yes, Sean.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. This is the time set for the jury selection in the trial of case number J1307, TR 2022-1948, State of Arizona versus Becky Heather Bell. Is the state ready to proceed?
We are good.
Is defense ready?
Yes, John.
Okay, for the record, I do note the presence of the state's attorney, defendant's attorney, as well as the members of our community who are here for jury selection in this case. Would all the jurors please stand for me? And we're going to raise our hands. Do you swear or affirm that you will give true answers to all the questions touching upon your qualifications to act as trial jurors in the case of the State of Arizona versus Becky Heather Bell? Thank you. Please have a seat. So we're going to begin jury selection in this case. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves, and that'll be by your seating position. Ma'am, you're juror number 1, and then we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. We'll start over here on number 8. You can sit if you have to.
I'm Pam Williams, I'm from Baghdad. I own and operate the diner. Is that it?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Rebecca Wilkes, I live in Yarnell, I'm a retired physician.
And we'll get to your background.
Judy Bess, I live on the Cumber Ranch, I'm also retired.
Thank you.
Devin Fendrich, and I stay at home with my kids.
Thank you.
Pamela Ostrom, I'm retired.
Deb Petit, Congress, Arizona, retired.
Thank you.
Diane Zayas, work in Boca Ranch, retired.
Thank you.
Rick Carroll, Baghdad, Arizona.
Thank you, sir.
Dawn Moy, Wickenburg, Arizona.
Thank you.
Housekeeper.
And we'll get to your background as far as where you worked in just a bit. Thank you for introducing yourself, though.
Kimberly Harrington.
Thank you.
Melinda Lentz, Wickenburg.
Renee Stoyer, Wickenburg. Kristen Cassidy Pratt, Congress.
Thank you.
Nancy Miller, Wickenburg Ranch.
Susan Ginsing, and I live in Peaceful Health.
Thank you, ma'am.
Debbie Jewell, Congress.
Mary Lemma, Baghdad. Janae Dimby, People Style.
Kelly Johnson, Wickenburg Ranch.
Thank you, sir.
Betty Brooks, Will Hoyt.
Thank you.
Desiree Lewis, Charnel.
Fernando Strat, People's Valley.
Thanks, sir.
All Sheets, Congress.
Cynthia Rogers, Congress.
Nancy Myers, Yarnell.
You said Myers? Thank you. So we're going to ask you a series of questions about yourselves, and we're not trying to pry unnecessarily into your personal lives or your affairs, but and we're not trying to embarrass anybody, and I hope they don't do that. But it is necessary for me to ask questions to find out if you have any knowledge about the case or about any of the people who might be involved in it, to find out if you have any preconceived opinions about the case, which you might find difficult to lay aside, and to find out if you have any personal or family experiences that might cause you to identify yourself with any of the parties. I should ask, can everybody hear me okay? Or is there anybody who can't hear me? Actually, if I asked that, then if you couldn't hear me, you wouldn't know to answer that question. Okay. I saw, okay. If everybody chuckled, I know you can hear me, so looking in the back. Thank you. So we do need to ask these questions so that we can do all we can to assure that each party, to each party, that the jurors who are going to be seated to decide the case are able to be fair and impartial. Please don't withhold information in order to get seated on the jury. Don't be concerned with whether your answers are right or if they're wrong. This is not any sort of a test. Just be honest and candid in your answers, and do not be concerned with what you feel the lawyers or I might want to hear from you. If your answer involves a confidential or sensitive matter, you can let me know that, and we'll talk to you in private once we finish the group voir dire. Just let me know that you want to answer in private when I ask the question. You must have the following qualifications to serve on the jury for this case. You must be 18 or over, a citizen of the United States, a resident of the precinct, mentally competent, and not convicted of a felony unless your civil rights have been restored. If there's anybody who doesn't have all of these qualifications, please raise your hand. Yes, ma'am.
I live in Maricopa County.
You live in Maricopa County. Okay, well, I think that's a basic qualification. So you're on the Wickenburg side of the county line?
Yeah.
Okay. And you, 79. And you're Miss Muir?
Dornmoy.
Okay. All right, you're excused, ma'am. Thank you for coming in today. I do appreciate you coming up here. We'll pass that on to the jury commissioner also.
Thank you.
What did she say?
She lives in Maricopa.
Oh.
Does anybody else not have those qualifications that I went over? Is everybody in Wickenburg thinking about which side of the line they live on right now? For the most part, it's the Wickenburg Ranch falls in Yavapai, as well as the things north of the ranch also. I do know that jury service is an inconvenience to everybody to one extent or another, and you know how important it is to this community that people such as yourselves are willing to serve on juries to decide cases like this one. It is one of the most important civic duties that citizens of this country are called upon to perform, and I know you will not take the duty lightly. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. If your answer to a question asks the whole panel is no, you don't need to do anything. If your answer to a question is yes, please raise your hand. When I call on you, please state your name, and I may ask you additional questions of you at that time or during the individual voir dire. If you don't understand a question or if you don't hear it clearly, please raise your hand. When I call on you, please ask for clarification. I will try to speak louder or more clearly, or I will reword the question so that you will understand. If you don't know whether your answer is yes or no, raise your hand and I will attempt to clarify it for you. Brooks.
She didn't sign that. Sign it.
Okay, go ahead. Ms. Brooks?
Just need to know who she is.
Thank you. Okay, the complaint in this case in summary form reads as follows. The state has alleged that on 5/30 of 2022, about 10:37 p.m. on the SR 89 near Sunrise Road, the defendant was driving a vehicle while impaired to the slightest degree by the effect of a drug or drugs. That is the nature of this case, and that's just giving you some context regarding the questions that you'll be answering today. Ms. Bell has pled not guilty to the charge. Please understand that the law provides that a juror can only be excused if the prospective juror has a mental or physical condition that causes the juror to be incapable of performing jury service, or service would substantially and materially affect the public interest or welfare in an adverse manner, or the prospective juror is not capable of understanding the English language. Jury service would cause an undue or extreme physical or financial hardship for the juror or a person under that prospective juror's care or supervision. The prospective juror is a certified peace officer who is currently employed in that capacity in this state. The prospective juror was on a grand jury within the last 4 years, or if the prospective juror is at least 75 years old. And I will tell you a little bit about the schedule for the trial. The trial will begin immediately following jury selection. It is expected to be completed prior to 5:30. We will take short breaks every 1.5 to 2 hours throughout the day, and lunch will be for an hour at approximately noon. If necessary, the trial may continue to tomorrow, and if it does, it will resume at noon tomorrow with those same breaks in the afternoon. Is there anybody that this schedule does not accommodate?
Can't hear a word.
What's that? Can you hear? Do you need something to help you hear?
What?
Do you need something to help you hear?
No, I just,
No, it's okay. We have a thing that we call them earmuffs. Is it your hearing or is it me speaking?
it's me hearing.
Okay. Can we get him that? Oh, somebody already has it? Hold on. Oh, yeah. There should be batteries.
If it was him, they would, if it was you, everybody else would be complaining.
Well, I just don't know. Sometimes I get quiet and people let me know about that.
Not all.
All right. And then I'm just gonna talk a little bit. And you can let me know if that's working for you. Is that helpful? And there's a little dial button on the side for adjusting the volume. Still not happening?
Oh, there's,
Okay, now is that better? It's always nice to have help, and I appreciate. Thank you, ma'am, for helping him out with that. But you can hear me, okay?
Yeah.
Hey, what was the last thing you heard?
hurt.
What? No. Okay. All right. Let me go back to some basic questions for you, sir. Okay. I'm going to give you some basic questions. Can you hear me okay now?
What about the questionnaire?
I'm going to ask you some basic questions that I already covered with everybody else. Can you hear me okay right now?
Yeah, I'm still playing with this.
Okay. Well, if it's not working, make sure you raise your hand and let me know. Okay. So to be a juror, you have to be at least 18 years old. So that we're going to make sure you meet these qualifications. You have to be a citizen of the United States. You have to be a resident of this precinct, mentally competent, as well as not convicted of a felony unless your civil rights have been restored. Do you meet all those qualifications, sir?
Yes.
And then I did talk a little bit about the inconvenience of jury service and how we appreciate you being here today. We greatly appreciate that. The complaint, though, is that the state is alleging that Ms. Bell on 5/30 of 2022, about 10:37 p.m. on the SRA 9 near Sunrise Road, was driving a vehicle while impaired to the slightest degree by the effect of a drug or drugs. That is the nature of the case, and that's just to give you some context regarding the questions that we have today. Did you hear me okay? Thank you. And Ms. Bell has pled not guilty to the charge. I was going over the trial schedule. It'll begin immediately following jury selection. It is expected to be completed by 5:30. We will take breaks every hour and a half to 2 hours throughout the day, and lunch will be for an hour at approximately noon. If necessary, we will continue till tomorrow, starting at noon. So that is the schedule. Does that schedule accommodate you, sir, physically?
Will it accommodate me?
Yes, I'm asking. These are things I covered before, but I want to make sure I cover them with you. Does that schedule accommodate you physically?
I have some on Thursday, but as long as it's Tuesday and Wednesday, that's no problem.
Very well, sir. Thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to ask the question to the entire group. We're back to the group setting. I'm going to ask 3 questions. If your answer to any question is affirmative, please raise your hand. You may request permission to communicate to me in private if that is your choice. Is there any juror who has a physical condition or illness that would make it difficult or impossible to sit through a trial of this length? Yes, ma'am.
I had a stroke 2 years ago, and I really can't run. My judgment is off, and I'm prejudiced because God sprayed me when
I didn't catch that last thing you said.
God sprayed me and beat me out
Oh.
in Phoenix.
Mr. Lord, that doesn't quite answer the question, but are we okay with an excusal? Sorry? That doesn't quite answer my question directly, but is that okay for an excusal at this point?
It is, yeah.
Okay. You may be excused, ma'am. Thank you for coming in today. I do appreciate it. Make sure you check in at the front counter so they can track that you were here today. What was your name again, ma'am?
Again,
Thank you. I think number 15. Anybody else that does not physically accommodate the schedule? Okay, so no hands are raised. Is there any juror who does not have a sufficient knowledge of the English language to understand a court trial? Let the record show no hands are raised. Is there any juror who has a hearing or any other impairment or disability that would affect their ability to participate?
Hearing?
I saw that one coming. You can tell me, sir. Does your hearing? Would it?
I have hearing aids at home, but they're not as good as these.
So this what we gave you is sufficient. Is that correct? So you would be able to participate?
Yeah, I don't think I will give excuse for that.
Well, I'm asking the
There
questions.
is something else that might pertain.
Okay. So it sounds like we're going to get there, and we'll get to that question here in just a bit. Okay. Does anybody else have any impairment or disability that affects their ability to participate? Okay, no hands are raised. Is there anything about the schedule, your physical condition, or your financial condition that would cause you an undue or extreme hardship so that you would be unable to serve on this jury and be rescheduled for you to do your duty at a later date? No hands are raised. Okay. So over here on the wall, we do have a series of questions I'm going to ask each of you to answer. When it is your turn, please stand, give us your name before you answer the question. And what we're looking for is your name, a general area where you reside. You don't need to be specific to it. So say you live on the County 15 between Peoples Valley and Wilhoit. That would be a sufficient answer. Give us your occupation. Let us know if you're retired or unemployed. Tell us what you did while you were working. If you are a teacher or a student, please tell us what subject you teach or are studying. Tell us your marital status. Let us know your spouse or partner's occupation. And if retired or unemployed, tell us what he or she did while working. If your spouse or partner is a teacher or a student, please tell us what subject he or she teaches or is studying. If you have served as a juror before, tell us the type of case, whether that be criminal or civil, if you recall what that is. Okay, Ms. Williams, would you like to start for us?
Okay, my name
No.
is Pat.
And you don't have to stand, but we like it when you stand. But it's your choice.
My name is Pamela Williams. My address is 129 Sunrise Terrace, Baghdad, Arizona. I own and operate the diner. My spouse works for Freeport McMoran. I served as a juror, maybe 40 years ago in Phoenix. A bank suing a lumber company, or a lumber company suing a bank, and the bank won. And it took a week of a lot of paperwork.
Thank you, ma'am.
Pardon me for facing the wall. My name's Rebecca Wilkes. I live in Yarnell. I'm a professional photographer, retired physician. My husband is an engineer and a previous peace officer. Never served on a jury before.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Judy Best. I live at Wickenburg Ranch. I am not employed, I'm retired. My husband is also retired. My former occupation was, I was in employee development for a construction company. My husband worked for the same construction company as an engineer. I have not served on a jury before.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Best.
Again, Gendrich. I live in Baghdad. My husband works for Freeport, McMurray. And I stayed home with the kids. And I've been served juries, but I've never been on a case.
So you were at selection but didn't get selected?
Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Pamela Ostrom. I live here in Yarnell. My occupation was an insurance secretary. I'm unemployed now or retired. My spouse was a pipe fitter and he's retired. He just builds cars now. Let's see. And I've never been on a jury before.
Thank you, Ms. Ostrom.
Deb Poteet, I live in North Ranch in Congress. I'm a retired interior designer. My husband retired from Palo Verde Nuclear Power Plant. I've never served on a jury. I've been, I guess, called, but never served.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Petit.
Okay. My name is Diane Sire. I live in Wickenburg Ranch. My husband and I are retired. We both used to work for the federal government. Then I left the federal government and became a health tech in this middle school.
Have you served on a jury before?
Oh, no.
What was the nature of your work with the government?
A statistician.
And your husband?
Statistician.
Thank you, Ms. Sires.
My name is Rick Carroll. I live in Baghdad, Arizona. I work for the safety department for Freeport McMurray. My spouse is currently retired. She used to be a banker back in Texas. I have served on a jury in Texas one time. Been called several times, and that's it.
What type of case was it?
Mismanagement of fiduciary funds, so I'm a public employee.
So was it a civil case or a criminal case? And what was the verdict?
Guilty.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Harrington. I live in Wickenburg Ranch. I'm retired from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I was a government auditor. My husband just retired from Wells Fargo, and he's a VP of something, and I'm sorry to say, I don't think it's got a big old long thing. But he's retired now. I have served as a juror, and it was about truly known pesticide, but it was settled out of court after several days.
And I'm assuming a civil case.
You know what?
What was the state involved, or was it just two parties that were?
It was truly known and like a patient. So,
Okay.
yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're okay. Thank you.
I'm Melinda Lance. I am retired. I was an operations controller for a dessert manufacturer. My husband is also retired. He was an aerospace engineer for Northrop Grumman. And I've been called but never served on jury.
I'm sorry, maybe I didn't catch. Where do you live at, ma'am?
Oh, Wickenburg Ranch.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Renee Sawyer. I live in Wickenburg Ranch. My last job was working as checking out people at the eye doctors. And my husband worked for JPL in Pasadena. We're both retired now, and I have never served on a jury.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Good morning, Christine Cassidy Pratt, live in Congress, Arizona. I'm a retired nurse. Sadly, I'm going through divorce, so probably don't need to talk about my spouse. I've been called for jury service, but I've never been selected.
Okay. What kind of work did he do, though?
Sales.
Sales. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
I'm Nancy Miller. I live in Wickenburg Ranch. I'm a financial planner. My husband claims to do the same, but given the number of naps he takes, I think he's retired. And I have never served on a jury.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, I'm Catherine Jewell. I live in Congress, Arizona. I'm a freelance copy editor for a couple of different educational companies. My husband is a retired pipe fitter. I did serve on a jury before about 14 years ago in San Diego. It was a DUI case, and I was the sole person that hung the jury. And I cried because the jurors were mean to me. And it was a horrible experience.
Well, judging by this group, I don't think you'd have to worry about that today. So far.
Verdict,
The verdict. Thank you, Mr.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, because she was the holdup.
My name is Mary Lemmer, and I live in Baghdad. My husband's passed away. I was in sales, and I also volunteered with the Equestrian Patrol for 17 years in California. And I've been called many times for the juror, but never served.
I'm sorry to hear your husband passed. What did he do?
He was in sales.
Sales, okay.
Both.
Thank you, ma'am.
Janae Dimby, Peoples Valley. I work as a attendant care for my special needs granddaughter. And my husband works for Mom Ranches as a handyman. I've served on a jury, it was probably 30 years ago in Phoenix, and it was a drunk driving case. And I do not remember the verdict at all.
15 years ago, you said?
Probably 30 years.
Oh, 30.
It's a long
Okay.
time ago.
I guess I was giving you the benefit of the doubt there. Okay, sir.
I'm Kelly Johnson, Wickenburg Ranch, no spouse. I'm retired. Former occupation was nuclear physics. And I have served on a jury before, and it was a civil case, well, both civil and criminal in Portland, Oregon. I don't know, 30 years ago, and guilty on both. But the civil case was a smoking case. So I know they got $1 million or something like that. I don't remember how much exactly.
Thank you, sir.
Betty Brooks, Donegal in Will Hoyt is my address. I went in school as my last position, and I worked as a teacher's aide and a bus driver. My husband's retired from Arizona State Parks, and he was also a peace officer. And I served on a grand jury in La Paz County.
And for those of you who have served on a grand jury before, really thank you for the dedicated service of being on a grand jury.
Good morning, Desiree Lewis, Yarnell, Arizona. I have 2 jobs. I'm a full-time student. I have a master's in professional counseling and work as an LPC. I'm also employed by Asheville Healthcare as a health educator. I'm unmarried, and I've been called to jury duty numerous times before, and because I've twice been hit by drivers under the influence, one of whom ended my career as a fitness professional, and I have permanent damage to my spine by drunk drivers or under the influence drivers, and therefore usually don't get to do this kind of case. Have a bit of opinion about it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Fernando Estrella, I live in Peoples Valley. I was in gaming for many years. Just about all the casinos around Arizona. Spouse's occupation is, she's a housewife. She's a housewife, retired. And she was a housewife. No. Okay. Have you served on a jury? No, I have not served on a jury. No.
Thank you, sir.
Paul Sheets, Congress, Arizona, retired from Intel, worked as a manager there. Wife is retired, worked as a cafeteria worker at an elementary school, and never served on a jury.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Cynthia Rogers. I live in Congress. I owned an RV park, retired. My late husband worked alongside me and in the RV park. I served on 2 juries before in La Paz County. One was molesting a child, and that was not guilty. And one was a car accident, and that was guilty.
Was the, hold on 1 second, was the car accident a criminal case or a civil case?
I don't really know.
Was the state prosecuting somebody, or was it 2 parties that were having a lawsuit against each other?
I think it might have been
2 parties. Thank you, ma'am. Okay. All right, go ahead.
I'm Nancy Myers. I live here in Yarnell. I'm a retired pharmacy technician, and I've never served on a jury.
And spouse? Do you have a
No spouse.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Letter, Mr. Nunez, I have a question for you guys now. So would it be okay to excuse, or do you guys want to go through the entire questioning for the lady with the DUI question, or, excuse me, the other one, and I just got this, it's the one of them is the mother of one of your clients. Yeah. Is that a right? Is that a reason to excuse?
I don't think it is.
If we get there, yeah, she's a little bit in the back. Okay. Oh. Yeah, I think that's one of my next questions. Just do your introduction and excuse me. But the other one was let's see, 21. No, not 21. 7, 14. Number 20. Excuse me. All right, thank you. Ms. Wills, you may be excused. Thank you for coming in today.
Oh, hold on real quick.
Oh, yeah, Ms. No, not yet. You're still. No, Ms. Wills. We're going to keep you here. You want to go?
Sorry.
You're okay.
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
All right.
That was Rebecca Wills, right?
Well, you were pushing her.
Yes. Number 20, Desiree.
Oh.
Okay. The state is represented by Mr. Jason Nunez. He's the Deputy County Attorney. Counselor Nunez, could you introduce yourself and as well as any witnesses you may have?
Thank you, Judge. My name is Jason Nunez. I'm an attorney for the state. Sitting to my right is Deputy St. Gillet. It took me a while to learn his name. We also have Deputy Radford, Corey Radford, and a Sergeant Dan Ashby that will be testifying today as well.
Do any of you know Counselor Nunez, any member of the County Attorney's Office, or any of the witnesses that Counselor Nunez has identified? For the record, no hands are raised.
Excuse me.
So, go ahead.
Could you say the last part?
Okay. Do any of you know Counselor Nunez, any member of his office, County Attorney's Office, or any of the witnesses that Counselor Nunez has identified?
I know Dan Ashby, a good friend.
Mr. Lutter? Any objection to an excusal?
No.
Mr. Nunez, any objection to an excusal?
No good.
Okay, thank you, ma'am, for coming in today. Appreciate your service. You are excused.
I am.
Yes. I saw you sitting there, so that I'll just clearly say it. Thank you. Mr. Loader, would you like to introduce yourself and your client and any witnesses you may call?
I'm David Motor. I represent Ms. Becky Bell, private attorney.
Did you have a witness you wanted to bring up today? I saw a witness on your witness list.
Well, I would move for the excusal of Ms. Petite. She's a family friend. She knows where I live.
Yeah. Any objection, Mr. Nunez?
No, Judge.
Okay, Ms. Petite, now it's your turn. Okay. Does anybody else in the room know Mr. Loader, Ms. Bell, in any capacity? Okay, I see no hands are raised. And this is a criminal case. There are differences between criminal and civil cases. A civil case generally involves a dispute between private individuals, businesses, and/or government entities. A criminal case always involves a charge that the defendant committed a criminal violation. In a civil case, the plaintiff need only prove the case by a preponderance of the evidence. That's like weighing the evidence on a balance scale. There's evidence on both sides, but the heavier side wins, even if it's just a little bit heavier. In a criminal case, the state must prove the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt before the defendant may be convicted of the offense charged. This is a much heavier burden of proof. The term beyond reasonable doubt will be explained more in detail to those of you who actually sit on the jury in the trial of this case. Is there anybody who does not understand the difference between a criminal and a civil case? For the record, no hands are raised. At the beginning of the case, I will give you some instructions as to the law, and at the end of the case, before you go to deliberate. I will give you additional instructions at that time. You may feel the law as I read it to you may be too strict or too lenient, or you may feel that the law may be something other than what I read to you. Regardless of any personal opinion you may have as to what the law is or what it should be, you must follow my instructions as to the law as I give them to you. Do any of you feel that you could not follow my instructions as to the law if any particular instruction conflicted with some personal belief that you may have about what the law is or what it should be? No? I saw your hand go up. Okay. No hands are raised for the record. The law does require the state to prove the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. The defendant is presumed by law to be innocent. This means that the defendant is not required to prove innocence or produce any evidence of any kind. Are there any of you who do not understand this principle of law or who disagree with it? For the record, no hands are raised. Have any of you seen, heard, or read anything about this case or about any of the people involved, or have you ever heard anyone express an opinion about it?
What's that last part?
The same question I'm on?
The last sentence.
Okay. Have you seen, heard, or read anything about this case, about any of the people involved, or have you ever heard anyone express an opinion about this case?
No.
Okay. And for the group, does anybody answer in the affirmative to that? No hands are raised. Is there anything about the nature of this case that would make it difficult for any of you to serve as a fair and impartial juror? No. Need me to?
Maybe. I was in a drunk driving. I was convicted of drunk driving in 1974. So I don't know. That was so long ago. It doesn't matter.
Okay. Well, in a little bit, I'm going to ask you to answer that question. So we'll get back to that in just a bit. Okay, sir?
I have a baby.
You have a what?
Baby.
Okay. Would you like to share that with us now, or would you like to share it in private?
My father and both of my in-laws, all deceased, were alcoholics.
Okay. And for the record, that was Miss Juror number 2. And that is another following question, but thank you for being candid and bringing that up, ma'am. But we will ask that again in just a bit. Have any of you or any members of your family or close friends ever been engaged in law enforcement work, such as a security guard, a jail detention officer, a corrections officer, a police officer, or a military police officer? Okay.
Sorry, close relative.
Yeah, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with number 2. We're gonna go down the line. When it is your turn, please stand, say your name, and state what you would like to state regarding that. So please, ma'am, when you're ready.
Rebecca Wilkes, my husband was a sheriff's deputy in Montgomery County, Texas. He's no longer doing that work.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on row 1? Yes, ma'am.
My son worked in Surprise as a 911 operator or whatever, and he works as a security in St. Louis.
Your son?
My son,
He did or he does?
he does still in Missouri.
Okay, and I'm just trying to figure this out. So he used to be a 911 at Surprise?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was wondering how he was doing two at once.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Did you have your hand up, ma'am?
I did.
You did. Well, we're going to start over here, though. Sir, anybody on row 2? Yes, sir. We'll start with you, Mr. Carroll.
My daughter worked for the El Paso Sheriff's Department as a jailer. She's not working for them right now, but she is going to be hired by Huntsville State Prison.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. And when we do this, I need to go back to, if you could stand and say your name before you speak.
Renee Sawyer. My son-in-law is a sheriff in California.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Kristen Cassidy Pratt, previous husband, 33 years with the LAPD, my brother-in-law is chief of police, and 3 brother-in-laws are on law enforcement.
Thank you, Ms. Pratt. Or Ms. Castle Pratt. Apologies. Ma'am, row number 3. Yes, ma'am. Say your name.
Jackie Jewell, my dad was a sheriff in Erie County for 37 years.
Thank you.
Barry Lama, my husband, was a sheriff in Thousand Oaks, California.
Yes, ma'am.
Betty Brooks. My husband was a state park ranger, but was certified as a peace officer also.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks.
He's retired.
Fernando Estrella, my nephew, he was a police officer in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Yes.
Cynthia Rogers, my grandson's a sheriff in Surprise in Sun City.
Thank you, ma'am. Have any of you ever studied or practiced law or medicine? Okay, and same thing, we're going to do the same exercise. We're going to start with juror number 2.
Rebecca Wilkes, I was a OBGYN.
Row 2? Anybody hands up on row 2? Okay, Ms. Castle Pratt.
Retired emergency room nurse.
Okay, row 3? Anybody on row 3?
Sort of, but not the same way. Nuclear physics is this type of medicine.
It's a type of what?
Type of medicine,
Okay.
but it's not like practicing medicine.
Well, thank you for...
You make it.
No, thank you for having the doubt or concern that perhaps it is something and sharing it with us. I do appreciate that, sir.
Yeah, I mean, you make the medicine that goes into people. For chemical, it's a chemo drug is what it is, what we were making.
Thank you, sir. Hold on a second. I wrote... Yes, ma'am.
Cynthia Rogers, I was a MA, and my daughter's a scientist.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rogers. Ms. Myers.
I don't know if pharmacy technician is considered a practice, but it's in the healthcare field.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. Have any of you or any member of your family worked for an attorney in the past or at the present time? So we'll start with row 2 here, ma'am, please. Say your name.
It was
Say your name.
Renee Sawyer.
Thank
It
you.
was like for 4 months, and it wasn't.
It was you?
Oh, I was like answered the phone. And he wasn't much of a lawyer. Sorry.
Anybody else on row 2? Let's move to row 3.
Janae Dindy, my sister-in-law, was a law clerk.
Okay, thank you, Miss Dendy. Anybody? Oh,
Sorry.
hold on. I'm going to go back up to Miss Pratt.
Well, and if you're asking about family, so sister-in-law was the judge's assistant.
Said sister-in-law.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, let's go back to row 3. Yes, ma'am.
It's been 50 years ago or so that I worked for an attorney as a secretary.
Okay, and your name?
Betty Brooks.
Thank you. Anybody in the last row? A complaint is a method for bringing a defendant to court. The fact a defendant has been charged with an offense and is on trial today is not evidence of guilt. In fact, it is not evidence of any kind whatsoever. Do any of you disagree with this principle of our law? For the record, no hands are raised. Before hearing any evidence, is there any member of the panel who would vote the defendant guilty simply because they have been charged? For the record, no hands are raised. In deciding the facts of this case, the jury will have to evaluate the testimony of the witnesses. Is there anyone who could not judge the testimony of each witness by the same standards? For example, is there anyone who is likely to give more or less weight to the testimony of a law enforcement officer than to the testimony of another witness, simply because one is employed as a law enforcement officer and one is not? No hands raised, and that is a kind of a long question. Did everybody understand? Is there anybody who did not understand the question? No hands are raised. Have any of you ever been called to testify as a witness in a criminal case? Okay, over here, your name, ma'am?
Nancy Miller.
Just say that the purpose of the question is if you were a witness, then you've had to deal with lawyers questioning before, and we're trying to determine if there's anything about that might have been unpleasant that would make it you unable to serve today.
Yeah, no, I actually was called twice. One was a case against a manager that had misused funds. The other one was a criminal case with a young man who actually attacked my husband and I in our home and pulled out a nice big old 8-inch switchblade on me. So it was kind of a traumatic experience, but he spent a lot of time in jail over it, so.
Well, perhaps the attorneys may have questions later regarding that. We'll cover that in the individual portion. Okay. Third row, I saw a hand. Yes, ma'am.
Janae Denby, it was a drunk driving trial where the defendant killed my 13-year-old niece and her stepmother.
Thank you, Ms. Dendy. Anybody else called in as a witness in a case, a criminal case? No hands are raised. Has anybody been called as a witness in a civil case? No hands are raised. Or in any case? No hands are raised. Have you or any members of your family or a close friend ever been the victim of a crime alleged here or any other crime? And we don't need to revisit the ones that we've already heard. Ms. Castle-Pratt?
I'm currently due to divorce just because of domestic violence, and it is here in Yavapai County.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, yes, ma'am. Say your name.
Renee Sawyer. And well, my grandfather was killed by a drunk driver, my cousin was killed by a drunk driver, and my husband and I had a head-on collision by someone that was drunk and also under the influence.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Oh.
I'm not sure I understand the question then.
Have you or any members of your family or friend been the victim of the crime that we're talking about today or any other crime? Have you been the victim?
No.
Yes, sir.
I had,
You gotta say your name every time. We're recording, so we need to know who you are.
okay, I had, okay, it's Skelly Johnson. I had a friend of mine and their daughter died in a drunk hit and run.
Disagrees with this principle of law? No hands are raised. This is the fun question and where we live at. Do any of you know other members of the jury panel? Okay. And we're going to start on the rows once again.
Do we skip people who have been excused?
Yes, you can skip people who have been excused.
I don't know.
Okay. Anybody on row 1? Row 2? Yes, sir.
I work at Freeport.
You got to say your name first.
Rick Carroll, I work at Freeport background with one of the jurors' husbands.
My husband.
The purpose of the question too is perhaps there's we've had it where there's been a husband-wife that have been in the same pool, and also to employer-employee, supervisor-employee type of situation. So that is the purpose of the question. But thank you for letting us know that that does exist. And which juror is that, sir?
Miss Bainbridge, Mrs. Bainbridge.
Thank you. Anybody else on row 2? Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Miller. Wickenburg Ranch is kind of a small place. Mostly it's just recognizing Kelly from the pickleball courts and pickleball. But I'm usually hitting them, not socializing with them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say too.
So there wouldn't be a competitive relationship that would impede your ability to be fair and impartial?
No, but I always win. Just saying.
All right. So anybody else on row 3? Yes, ma'am.
I know Cynthia, and my husband and I used to help them in their RV park in the winters. So
In what capacity?
we would wait tables, we would cook, we would do whatever needed to be done. So
Thank you, ma'am. Did you just put your hand up, Ms. Lentz? I saw your hand go up for a second.
Oh, no, I was part of the Wickenburg Ranch pickleball.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I might not always be looking at you guys, but I have great peripheral vision, so I see the hands move. Anybody in row 4? Okay, no other hands are raised. Is there anybody here who does not drive an automobile? No.
I don't drive anymore.
Okay, got to say your name for me.
Oh, Pamela Ostra.
Okay. And you.
I live close.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else who does not drive? No hands are raised. Is there anybody on the panel who belongs to any organization whose purpose is to prohibit the sale or use of marijuana? No hands are raised. Are you any family member or a close friend or a let me start that again. Are you any family member or a close friend, a member or contributor to the organizations known as MAD, SAD, or Neighborhood Watch? No hands are raised. It is not against the law of the state for a person to ingest some legal drug and then drive an automobile. Those factors, standing alone, do not constitute a violation of the law. A driver is in violation of the law only if the drug ingested impairs the person to the slightest degree or exceeds a certain level. Do any of you believe that a person who ingests some legal drug, then drives an automobile, has violated the law regardless of the effect on the driver or the quantity consumed? Once again, a long question, so I want to make sure everybody understood it. Is there anybody who did not understand the question? Is there anybody who would answer in the affirmative to that question? Okay, I just saw somebody thinking out there, so that's why I took the long pause there. So does anybody believe that just because a person ingests a drug and then drives, they would automatically be guilty of a DUI? Okay, no hands are raised. Do any of you have a strong moral, philosophical, or religious objection to marijuana consumption? No hands are raised. Is there anybody on the panel now working or have previously worked in a marijuana dispensary? No hands are raised. Has anyone had an unpleasant or harmful experience with an intoxicated driver or an intoxicated person that would prejudice your deliberation in this case? Disagrees with this principle of law? No hands are raised. This is the fun question and where we live at. Do any of you know other members of the jury panel? Okay. And we're going to start on the rows once again.
Do we skip people who have been excused?
Yes, you can skip people who have been excused.
And no.
Okay. Anybody on row 1? Row 2. Yes, sir.
I work at Freeport.
You got to say your name first.
Rick Carroll. I work at Freeport background with one of yours.
My husband.
The purpose of the question too is perhaps there's we've had it where there's been a husband-wife that have been in the same pool, and also too employer-employee, supervisor-employee type of situation. So that is the purpose of the question. But thank you for letting us know that that does exist. And which juror is that, sir?
Miss Bainbridge, Mrs. Bainbridge.
Thank you. Anybody else on row 2? Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Miller. Wickenburg Ranch is kind of a small place. Mostly it's just recognizing Kelly, the pickleball courts, and pickleball. But I'm usually hitting them, not socializing with them.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say too.
So there wouldn't be a competitive relationship that would impede your ability to be fair and impartial?
No, because I always win. Just saying.
All right. So anybody else on row 3? Yes, ma'am.
I know Cynthia, and my husband and I used to help them in their RV park in the winters. So
In what capacity?
we would wait tables, we would cook, we would do whatever needed to be done. So
Thank you, ma'am. Did you just put your hand up, Ms. Lentz? I saw your hand go up for a second.
Oh, no, I was part of the Wickenburg Ranch pickleball.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I might not always be looking at you guys, but I have great peripheral vision, so I see the hands move. Anybody in row 4? Okay, no other hands are raised. Is there anybody here who does not drive an automobile? No.
I don't drive anymore.
Okay, got to say your name for me.
Oh, Pamela Ostrom.
Okay. And you.
But I live close.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else who does not drive? No hands are raised. Is there anybody on the panel who belongs to any organization whose purpose is to prohibit the sale or use of marijuana? No hands are raised. Are you any family member or a close friend or a let me start that again. Are you any family member or a close friend, a member or contributor to the organizations known as MAD, SAD, or Neighborhood Watch? No hands are raised. It is not against the law of the state for a person to ingest some legal drug and then drive an automobile. Those factors, standing alone, do not constitute a violation of the law. A driver is in violation of the law only if the drug ingested impairs the person to the slightest degree or exceeds a certain level. Do any of you believe that a person who ingests some legal drug, then drives an automobile, has violated the law regardless of the effect on the driver or the quantity consumed? Once again, a long question, so I want to make sure everybody understood it. Is there anybody who did not understand the question? Is there anybody who would answer in the affirmative to that question? Okay, I just saw somebody thinking out there, so that's why I took the long pause there. So does anybody believe that just because a person ingests a drug and then drives, they would automatically be guilty of a DUI? Okay. No hands are raised. Do any of you have a strong moral, philosophical, or religious objection to marijuana consumption? No hands are raised. Is there anybody on the panel now working or have previously worked in a marijuana dispensary? No hands are raised. Has anyone had an unpleasant or harmful experience with an intoxicated driver or an intoxicated person that would prejudice your deliberation in this case? No hands are raised. Do you have any personal feelings or experience about the charge of driving under the influence that might make it difficult for you to be completely fair and objective if you were to serve on a jury in this case? No hands are raised. You may have heard about instruments that measure the alcohol concentration in a person's breath or blood. In this case, a blood test was done. Does anyone object to testing blood or scientific principles on testing blood to detect active drug use? No hands are raised. Counsel? Okay, talk for 1 second. Anything else you want to ask? I have to set the standard closing questions. So I'll run through these and then we'll excuse them for a bit. Thank you. I just have a few more questions. Is there any incident that has occurred in your life that you feel the court and the parties should know about, even though you feel it would not influence your judgment in this case? Okay. Is there an incident that has occurred in your life that you feel that the court and the parties should know about, even though you don't think it's going to influence your judgment in this case? Okay, I did see a hand go up the first time I asked.
Janae Dendy. My daughter is pending a trial possibly for pretty much the same thing. If that's an answer to your question.
No, that's thank you. Yes, that is a great answer to the question. Anybody else? No other hands are raised. Sometimes I do find that we get to the end of questioning and the jurors have thought about answers they would have given before that they did not for the questions that were asked earlier, and then they wonder if they should give those answers or not. If you have anything in mind now that you're wondering if you should have told me about or wish you would have said something earlier, please let me know. There is no better time to do so than now. Is there anybody who would like to share any additional answer to a previous question that they may have had doubt about? Yes, we do have one hand. Will you please say your name for me, ma'am?
The question about, do you have family members that worked for an attorney?
Yes.
My sister worked for the district attorney in Hanford, California.
In what capacity?
Legal secretary.
Okay. Anybody else? No hands are raised. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short recess to complete the process of jury selection. We may call you back individually to ask some questions based on the attorneys if that is what their choice is. I don't know if it's warm outside yet or not. You guys are welcome to go outside or be in the hallway, whatever that is. The restroom is just right here. Let me ask though before you go, does anybody want a bottle of water?
Yes, please.
And I was gonna go outside.
Well, if you could take care of them. I'm sorry, I didn't even see him. He was already walking around with it. All right. So as you guys go out in the hallway, please feel free to get some water from Officer Colgrove. But please be available. We may call you back. Yeah, you can go outside, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, we gotta keep you guys awake in here.
Do you hear that?
Oh.
When you take it off, you should keep it off.
Turn it on.
We'll let you know, Mike.
Or something like that, drink of water. Thank you.
Definitely some characters.
Well, yeah, that kind of got all over the place. It wasn't like the last one.
No.
No, we're gonna stay on. Okay.
Maybe we can use the restroom.
Yes, please. Go ahead. You want us to wait for him to come back?
Um,